And we have breaking news from Chris Lowe at this moment. Nick Saban is retiring.
Nick Saban, the GOAT of college football, as some will say, including myself. Not only that, he has 7 national titles and 6 at Alabama. And with Coach Saban announcing his retirement just a couple days ago, I want to take a look at all his national championship wins at Alabama, as I was going to take a look at the team and the body of work that season to see where I rank them. And the ranking system is going to be between 1 and 6. And some people won't agree why I have some of these teams, but I'm here to say this. Listen, lots of these teams are hard to rank because we all know Saban did his work at Alabama very well, and all his teams were usually great. And before we get into these rankings, I want to say go follow my boy Stezo Designs on Twitter, as this channel wouldn't be anything without him. And at number 6, we got 2012 Alabama. And this team was very talented, as of course every Alabama team is. This team had 2 1,000-yard rushers in TJ Yeldon and Eddie Lacy. Then you had AJ McCarron under center, who this is maybe his best season. And then at wideout, you had Amari Cooper, who just reached 1,000 yards this season. And that was just the offense. The defense was even talented also. You had CJ Mosley, Clinton Dix, Trey DePriest, and D. Milliner. And this team started out hot, as they started out 9-0, including wins over 8th ranked Michigan, 13th ranked Mississippi State, and 5th ranked LSU. But soon they would lose, as they ran into Manziel Magic at Texas A&M, where of course we remember how crazy that game and that one play was by Manziel. Alabama would then go on to beat West Carolina and Auburn by the same score, 49-0. Then they had Georgia in an SEC championship game, in which it kind of looked shaky for them in this game, as at one point it was a 10-7 lead by Alabama, but it quickly turned into a 21-10 lead by Georgia. But no worries, Alabama responded with 2 touchdowns, making it 25-21. Georgia would then respond with a touchdown of their own as they take the lead, and now Alabama has to respond with a touchdown and a stop to win the game. And they did just that, as AJ McCarron connected to Amari Cooper for a touchdown, and then Alabama stopped Georgia on 4th and goal to win the game. And now they had the national championship coming up against Notre Dame, and this was a Notre Dame team led by Everett Grossen on offense and Manti Te'o on defense. But for Alabama, that didn't matter, as they won the game 42-14. And I remember this game. I don't even need to go back to watch this game, but what I remember from it is that Eddie Lacy and TJ Yeldon ran all over this Notre Dame defense. And this team was dominant, as they only allowed 10 points per game, scored 38 points per game, and they were 13-1 SEC champions and BCS champions. And coming in at number 5, we got 2017 Alabama. And this was one of Saban's most talented teams at Alabama, as they was led by Jalen Hurts, Damian Harris, and Calvin Ridley on offense. And on defense, they was crazy stacked. Mika Fitzpatrick, Levi Wallace, Raekwon Davis, Deron Payne, Anthony Averett, and Isaiah Buggs. And that's just to name a few. I'm gonna throw up a screenshot of the rest of that defense that year. I also don't want to leave out that this was that team that had all the freshmen in Najee Harris, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and Henry Ruggs, and Tua. And this season started out great, as they got to play number 4 Florida State, and they blew them out 24-7. They would win the next 2 games, and then for the 4th game of the season, they had Vanderbilt. And I remember like a week before this game, like Vanderbilt was talking about, we gonna teach Alabama some real SEC football. Come on, man.
You don't know what ball we play. Alabama, you're next.
Man, listen, the score was 59-0. That game was not close. After this, though, Alabama will go on to face a couple of more SEC opponents and beat them. But next 2 games, they had LSU and Mississippi State. And the LSU game wasn't close. Alabama won 24-10, but the Mississippi State game was a back-and-forth game, as this game was tied 24-24 in the 4th quarter until Jalen Hurts connected with Devontae Smith for the game-winning touchdown. A few weeks later, Alabama would match up against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, in which Alabama would get upset 26-14. And the problem with this is that it might have knocked them out of college football playoff contention. The good thing is, though, Auburn lost in the SEC championship game against Georgia, so Alabama was able to sneak into the college football playoffs, in which they played in the semifinal Clemson, and they whooped Clemson. Then they played Georgia in the national championship game, in which they beat Georgia on a game with a touchdown, as Tua connected with Devontae Smith. So this team won the Sugar Bowl and the college football playoffs while only allowing 11.9 points per game. And at number 4, we got 2015 Alabama. On offense, this team was loaded. They had Jay Coker at quarterback, and they had Heisman winner Derrick Henry at running back. Then they had Calvin Ridley and O.J. Howard as 2 pass catchers. On defense, they were still loaded. Reggie Ragland, Reuben Foster, Minka, Eddie Jackson, and Jonathan Allen. And this team will lose earlier than any other Bama team, as they lost in just the third game of the season, dropping their third game to Ole Miss 43-37, and this would make back-to-back seasons where Ole Miss will upset them. But they would bounce back in a great way, as they would beat Georgia, LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Florida in the SEC championship game. And after that Ole Miss game, they wouldn't allow nobody to score over 23 points on them, again, outside of Clemson in the national championship game. And in the college football playoff semifinal, they would draw Michigan State, where they would just whoop Michigan State 38-0. It was a sad performance by MSU. Then it would be Clemson in the national championship game 45-40, and two key plays from this game was Kenyon Drake's kick return touchdown and Marlon Humphrey recovering that onside kick. So this team won the SEC championship game, the Cotton Bowl, and the college football playoffs, while also having probably the hardest schedule on this list so far. And number 3 is crazy because it's 2011 Alabama, and this team was crazy on defense as they held opponents to 8.2 points per game and never gave up over 21 points this season. And they pitched 3 shutouts this season, 2 in the regular season being against North Texas and Vanderbilt. And it wasn't like they played weak teams that year. They beat Arkansas, Florida, and Penn State, who were all ranked in the top 25. And even though this team only allowed 8 points per game, they still lost the game, only giving up 9 points, as LSU beat them. Number 1 LSU, by the way, beat them 6-9. But luckily, they would get a rematch against LSU in the national championship game, in which they will win, and that's that third shutout I was talking about. And this game was a crazy defensive game, as it was regarded as one of the most boring national championship games ever. But me being a kid at this time, hey, I enjoyed it. Alabama won 21-0. And some crazy stats from the game included only 5 first downs for LSU, and they averaged 3.9 yards per rushing attempt. And not only that, they had 92 total yards this game. And this team was led by Trent Richardson, Courtney Upshaw, Dante Hightower, CJ Mosley, and Mark Barron. So this team won the BCS National Championship while only giving up 8 points per game this season. And at number 2, we got 2009 Alabama, which would be Nick Saban's first national championship in Tuscaloosa. And this team probably had the best resume on this list, as they opened the season beating number 7 Virginia Tech, then they beat number 20 Ole Miss and number 22 South Carolina. But they didn't stop there, as they beat number 9 LSU and they beat number 1 Florida in the SEC championship game. And to put it in perspective, they beat a Florida team led by Urban Meyer and Tim Tebow. But not only that, this team was also looking for their third championship appearance in 4 years. And after this game, they would play Texas in the BCS championship game, where they would win 37-21, and this would be the start of the dynasty. On offense, this team was led by Heisman winner Mark Ingram, and it was led by Julio Jones, who was a true sophomore. The defense had Mark Barron, Ronaldo McClain, Kareem Jackson, and Marcel Darius. And this team only allowed one team to score 24 points or more. Not only that, they only gave up 11 points per game. They went undefeated, and they were SEC and BCS champions. And it's obvious, of course, 2020 Alabama is number 1. And that team featured Heisman winner Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Mac Jones, on defense Patrick Tan. Then you got Christian Barmore and Will Anderson Jr. And this team defense wasn't as good as any other team's defense on this list, as they allowed 19 points per game. But the thing is, they outscored their opponents because they scored 48 points per game. And every game but 2 of them this season, they scored over 40 points, and including 2 games where they scored 63 points. And they would have ranked wins over number 13th ranked Texas A&M, number 3 ranked Georgia, 22nd ranked Auburn, and 11th ranked Florida. This team was featured in the college football playoffs, of course, as they beat Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl, which was played in Texas. Then they beat Ohio State in the national championship game, in which it was like 52-24. Honestly, this team was so dominant. This team would not only go undefeated, but they would win the SEC championship game, they would win the Rose Bowl, and the college football playoffs. But let me know where y'all want to rank these championship wins yourselves in the comments. Also, let me know what y'all think about this list. And until next time, I'm out. Peace.